Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie, Laurel.
And I'm Delos, Santos, and here are the day's biggest stories. The national government plans to raise 200 billion pesos from the local debt market next month.
It's all systems go for the inauguration of President-Elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. after the Supreme Court junked the petitions challenging his candidacy.
We knew it was coming. We didn't know it would come now.
An employers group urges the incoming president to focus on creating jobs and address unemployment.
And the Securities and Exchange Commission affirms the revocation of Rappler's corporate registration over foreign ownership restrictions in mass media. We begin our broadcast with the national government looking to borrow up to 200 billion pesos from domestic sources in July.
Next month's borrowing plan, the first under the new administration, is 20% lower than what was programmed in June. Now, for this month, the Bureau of Treasury has set a 250 billion borrowing program, but it only managed to raise 150 billion pesos. For July, the Treasury will hold auctions for 60 billion pesos worth of T-bills and 140 billion pesos in T-bonds. Economists say the smaller offering could be due to fewer auction dates and the national government's front-loading before the 2022 elections. The Supreme Court has decided to junk all petitions questioning the validity of President-Elect Bongbong Marcos' candidacy in the last elections. 13 justices agreed that Marcos Jr.'s certificate of candidacy is valid and in accordance with the law. At any rate, this means there are no more legal impediments to bar Marcos Jr.'s assumption of office as the country's 17th president by tomorrow at noon. Now, the president-elect says he is happy with the High Court's decision.
That clears that removes all of the questions that they have raised as to my my qualification to run for president at all. So we knew it was coming. We didn't know it would come now, but of course I'm very glad that we can now proceed without that in the back of our heads.
And with the Supreme Court clearing the legal impediments hounding his candidacy, the inauguration of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. as the country's 17th president is now all set. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza with the rest of the story.
Solemn and peaceful. That's how incoming President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. describes his inauguration on June 30 at the historic National Museum.
More or less, traditional pa rin ang gagawin. Hindi na kami lilihis pa sa nakagawian.
The Chief Justice will administer the oath. This time, it's Supreme Court Chief Justice Alexander Gesmundo. Celebrity and Marcos Jr.'s staunch supporter Tony Gonzaga will be singing the national anthem. A 30-minute military-civil parade will follow. After Quezon, Rojas, and Laurel, Marcos is only the fourth president to be inaugurated at the National Museum. That choice comes with sentimental reasons.
Di ko makakalimutan, yan yung building na kung saan ako nag-aantay para sunduin yung aking ama para iuwi siya.
A historian also adds that this is where Marcos Jr.'s parents, the late dictator President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. and former First Lady Imelda Marcos, began their love story. But the halls of the old legislative building is only witness to the first protest against the Marcoses.
Lahat naman ng presidente may tamang nagawa, may maling nagawa. The better way to actually redeem the name of the Marcoses, kung gusto nila, is not to revise history, but to learn from history and to do good.
Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
So we're one day away from the oath-taking of the 17th president. What does the business community want the Marcos Jr. administration to focus on in the next 6 years? Let's find out from the perspective of Sergio Ortiz-Luis, president of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. Sergio, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I think, sir, you are on mute.
Good morning to everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us again. So we'll have a new president in more or less 24 hours here. What do you think should be on top of the agenda for Marcos Jr. here, especially when it comes to the labor market?
Well, actually, in the labor market, we would like to see that finally that the antiquated labor code that we have can be changed, no? And there are some issues that are pending, like issues on contractualization, for instance, banning everything. Those should be settled already. In the employment sector, we in ECOP have joined multisectoral and the government in creating jobs. Last year, we promised that we will create to them 1 million jobs. We did not meet that last December, but in March we were able to meet the 1 million jobs, and then we promised again that this year we will do another 1 million jobs, and we're on top of that already.
Okay, let's zero in on contractualization here, sir. Sir, what exactly do you want to see? I mean, this has long been a promise here, ending contractualization in past administrations. I mean, this is not exactly new, but this time around, what are you hoping to see over the next 6 years?
Well, actually, there is a misconception on what the President Duterte promised. No, he promised everyone that he would end ENDO or 555. No, but for some reason, some people interpreted it as he promised to end all sorts of contractualization, and that is why, if you will remember, that is why President Duterte vetoed the bill. No? I think there will be an attempt again to renew that call, but we have to remind everyone that what is being asked for in ending all sorts of contractualization is not done anywhere else in the world. Because there are some contractualizations that are really necessary for business to be competitive. Like, for instance, if you end all sorts of contractualizations, even BPOs, call centers, things like that, those will be banned. And remember, if we have a lot of OFWs working abroad, if they impose something like that, then our OFWs will no longer be welcome anywhere else in the world. And to be competitive, I think investors, people from abroad, would like to see that what is the practice and what is acceptable to ILO, International Labour Organization, should be the one here, no more, no less.
Okay.
And that is what we are trying to impose, or tell the people. We have already banned 555 is illegal now, and so everybody who is employed after 6 months will be permanent. But the issue is they cannot be all permanent to the principal, because that is a decision where, for instance, if San Miguel is the one having service provider, they will be permanent with the service provider, not necessarily with San Miguel.
Sir, Sir, on that note, since you mentioned President Duterte, what particular policies can you say were successful? You did mention, part of that ending that illegal part of contractualization, not necessarily all contractualization, but can you say that he was successful in improving the labor force, whether that's by increased jobs or increased labor participation or upskilling?
Well, I think the acid test is we did have industrial peace during his time. Have you heard of any big strikes or not? I've not. I think there are 1 or 2 strikes, but they were all settled amicably, and that is a proof that the industrial peace is existing. We cannot help that jobs were lost because of the pandemic, but I think we are regaining them as we lower our alert system, and that is what is happening now.
Okay, good.
Now, of course, sir, the incoming administration will be inheriting elevated levels of inflation here. Prices of homes, everything already higher here. Is the labor sector, is the employers at least, are you amenable to another possibility of a second round of wage hikes here? And at what level are you at least willing to compromise when it comes to increasing wages?
We have the tripartite wage board now, and the rule is there will be an anniversary of 1 year before anything else is filed, an increase. No? But theoretically, that is what is the policy now, or that is the law now. So all the regions have already decided on the wage increase, and even the domestic helper has been granted their wages already. So I don't think there is any possibility that any wage will be entertained within a period of 1 year. And besides, let me just that there are complaints, but actually when it came out, even it is far from what was requested or enjoined by the labor groups. There were no violent objections, because I think they understand already that we have to address the issue not only on the basis of political or emotional, but the realities of the economy. We have to remember that there are 48 million in the labor market. When you raise wages, that only affects the formal sector, and that's only the minimum wage earners, only 10% of the labor market. So anything you do with the 10% will affect the 90%. If what will happen, for instance, to the tricycle driver, jeepney drivers, farm workers, small business, family business, and they are 90% of this. If you increase wages unreasonably high, those affected companies will raise their price and pass it on to the buyers. The minimum wage earners will just be chasing the price. But how about the 90%? Who have no employers to raise their wage? They will have to suffer the increases, the inflation that is created, and I think that's the reality that have to be accepted.
Sir, where are we now in terms of recovery? Have we already, are we well on our way back to the pre-pandemic levels? Are you more optimistic? Is there increased business confidence within the Employers Confederation, sir? Or are there more issues on the table, higher risks that are, of course, to be anticipated?
Well, definitely we are going to what we call the new normal already. Unfortunately, the vaccine thing has been always on the table, and that is discouraging a lot of investors and a lot of companies who would like to rehire and work 100% are discouraged. Among others, that is the reason that why do we keep on selling vaccine even at this point, no? When there is no more emergency, and the variant that we are facing is even milder than flu, and we are threatening that we will raise alert level. That is discouraging a lot of people. For emergency and experimental, that is fine. But there is no emergency. Why are we experimenting even on our children? Why do we forcing them to have more vaccine just because vaccines are expiring? There are dangers, inherent dangers also on this vaccine. So we should live our lives and move on. let's just be sure that our health system is intact and that we
Definitely,
have
of course, those health concerns are going to be primary here, especially as we try to return to the new normal. Of course, it's going to be a different topic altogether if we are to discuss a vaccination here, sir. But again, last question here. Again, more and more employers adjusting the way they operate. Is work from home now becoming more and more a viable option here for employers, considering, of course, the rising cost of almost everything, not just fuel?
Well, work from home is fine, but those are limited to certain companies. Manufacturing, construction, bulk of their people cannot be work from home. So this work from home is mainly for backroom offices, for people, and there are not many. And many companies are still doing work from home, not because they find it more efficient, but because there are inherent problems still on transportation, for instance. There are people who are having difficulty going to, and it's very expensive, shuttling them. So eventually, as we normalize, the issue of work from home will disappear. Like students, has to be face-to-face. There are inherent weakness in work from home, not seeing each other. And I think eventually people will just have to work because that's why in the office, because that's why what they are hired for, not to work from home.
All right, so a lot of considerations still. Of course, some are responsibility, some the government's responsibility also for our own health and safety to get back on our feet in terms of the employment sector. Thank you so much. Sergio Ortiz-Luis, President of the Employers' Confederation of the Philippines. Salamat, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, pausing for a quick break, but coming right up after that. President Duterte signs an order updating the list of investment areas where foreign investments are barred.
More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. Now, the LTFRB is set to decide on the 2 peso fare hike petition for jeepney drivers in Metro Manila.
But drivers who are hoping for a higher fare increase would have to wait for the next administration for their pleas to be heard. Gerard De La Peña reports.
Pump prices were jacked up yet again on Tuesday with the 1 peso and 65 centavo increase for a liter of diesel and a 50 centavo markup for a liter of gasoline. Drivers are still hoping that the government will hear their plea and hike fares. The LTFRB has already tackled their petition for a 2 peso increase in minimum fares, meaning an additional 1 peso to the previously implemented 1 peso provisional fare hike. This will bring the minimum fare in jeepneys in Metro Manila, Central and Southern Luzon, as well as in Cebu and Davao to 11 pesos. Transport groups also ask for a 2 peso increase in fares in other regions. The LTFRB said they will decide on this before the Duterte administration ends.
It will impact not only the operators and the drivers, but the commuters as well. Not only that, but there is also a factor on the effect on the economy, the inflationary impact.
As for the petition to jack up fares by 5 pesos, the LTFRB says they leave it up to the next administration. As for the petition to jack up fares by 5 pesos, the LTFRB says they leave it up to the next administration. Also up for discussion are fare hike petitions filed by operators of provincial and city buses, TNVS and taxis. For News 5, Gerard De La Peña, we are One News.
The Agriculture Department has said it is relaxing import bans by allowing vaccine imports and exploring new types of feed. This in a bid to contain the rising prices of poultry products, including eggs. DA Chief William Dar said in a statement that tactical intermediation is needed to tackle the pent-up demand for poultry products and the drop in output as producers hold back on production. He added that the agency is already conducting talks with other countries for the possible sourcing of alternative feed ingredients to lower production costs for the poultry sector.
Now, President Rodrigo Duterte has signed an order updating the list of investment areas where foreign ownership is limited or barred. Executive Order 125 largely maintained the status quo, which bars foreign equity in mass media, except recording and the internet business. But the 12 foreign investment negative list no longer includes the manufacture and distribution of products requiring clearance from the Defense Department. Now, on the previous list issued by Duterte in 2018, guns and ammunition for warfare, military ordnance, and guided missiles, tactical aircraft, space vehicles, and military communication equipment were limited to 40% foreign equity. EO 125 was issued as part of the requirements under the Foreign Investments Act of 1991.
The SEC has upheld its 2018 decision to order the shutdown of news company Rappler. The agency said it affirmed its earlier decision to revoke the certificates of incorporation of Rappler and Rappler Holdings over violations of constitutional prohibitions on foreign ownership in mass media when it issued Philippine depositary receipts to foreign entity Omidyar Network. Rappler CEO Maria Ressa said the ruling effectively confirmed the shutdown of the news site. Ressa said they will appeal the decision, calling the SEC's proceedings on the case, quote, highly irregular. And those are the biggest stories from the corporate and economic front today. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danie Laurel. We are One News, but don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse when Businessworld Live returns. Stay with us.
Okay, Dan, one day before the inauguration and the beginning of a new administration, you have an interesting chart on what goes on in the markets the day before a Philippine president takes office. Tell us more.
All right, Jess, exactly what you mentioned. We have a Bloomberg chart here. You can see that. And it does illustrate that the index, if history is to be believed, is poised to extend its 3-day rally through at least tomorrow or Wednesday. That is, of course, on the eve of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. becoming president. Now, if you can see on my chart here, since 1992, there has been a jump of at least, close to 1% or 2%. 1998, above 2%. And in 2016, around 1.7% on the eve of the administration or the day before that. And this, according to Jonathan Revelas, we could see the history repeat itself on the hopes that the new president will move the country forward. But he did caution that the current winning streak won't last if, of course, he does not tame inflation and boost the economy. So a lot of things to be watching out for there. Nevertheless, let's take a quick peek at how our markets are opening this morning. We are indeed gaining, although not as much as we were hoping for. We're still up by 0.04%. Nevertheless, above the 6,300 levels yesterday. This, of course, in the back of continued bargain hunting, which we saw for a couple of days now. Even as yesterday, stocks in Asia dropped, we did have a broad-based recovery. And I just wanted to focus on a few stocks to watch, Jess. So let's first kick off with Mega White. I'm going to pull out the 3-day chart for you because you can see the continuing major rise of this company, 44% up in just the past 3 days. Now, they did mention that the regional trial court has dismissed a case against its CEO and 2 other executives for alleged violation of the country's anti-dummy law. So it has actually already risen up to 18% yesterday, and it does seem to be continuing on the rise now, trading close to 5 pesos. Another one that had been enjoying gains yesterday but is trading flattish today, so I'll pull out the 3-day chart for you. That is SPNEC. That, as their parent, which is of course Solar Philippines, won 70% of renewable energy capacity in a government auction. They bagged 91% of all solar capacity in that same auction. So if you invested 3 days ago, you're now 9% richer in SPNEC. And finally, I'm going to pull out a Union Bank for you, which is actually going the opposite way, down by 5 centavos. This, as they did mention, they are expecting to launch their digital bank in July, Jess. This as they target to double their e-commerce and e-wallet platforms to 2 million accounts from 1 million at present.
All right, lots of things happening in the market. That's it for today, June 29, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.